Is it okay to record, sir? Are you okay with us recording, or if you don't want us to record, we will not record?
No issues, no issues.
Swaha Saviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat Om Bhuvaswaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat Om Bhuvaswaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Our Father, thou art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Shema
Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad, Hashem Vahu Vahishte Asti, Ushta Asti, Ushta Hai, Yatashay Vahishte Asti. Namo Tassat Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhasya. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami, Sangham Sharanam Gacchami. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. 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 La ilaha illallah, Allah, Allah. La ilaha illallah, Allah, Allah. La ilaha illallah, Allah, Allah. Om Saishwaraya Vidmahe Satyadevaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Om Saishwaraya Vidmahe Satyadevaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Om Saishwaraya Vidmahe Satyadevaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Sam Bisk sir, you can start.
Yeah. Ganesha Charanam Paramapavanam Satyasayinam Gajananam. Ganesha Charanam Paramapavanam Satyasayinam Gajananam. Nityasmaranam Paramapavanam Satyasayinam Gajananam. Nityasmaranam Paramapavanam Satyasayinam Gajananam. Sadguru Charanam Paramapavanam Satyasayinam Gajananam. Paramapavanam Satyasayinam Gajananam. Bhavabhayaharanam Paramapavanam Satyasayinam Gajananam. Bhavabhayaharanam Paramapavanam Satyasayinam Gajananam. गणेशचरणं परमपावनं सत्यसायिनं गजाननं नित्यस्मरणं परमपावनं सत्यसायिनं गजाननं सद्गुरुचरणं परमपावनं सत्यसायिनं गजाननं भवभयहरणं परमपावनं सत्यसायिनं गजाननं भवभयहरणं परमपावनं सत्यसायिनं गजाननं गणेशचरणं परमपावनं सत्यसायिनं गजाननम्.
Saram all, we are blessed to have Brother Sivakumar at our Satsang today. And he's going to share Swami's love from his experience with our Bhagwan today. Just a little brief introduction about Brother Sivakumar. Dr. B. Sivakumar hails from Ooty and did his schooling in Chennai. Later, he joined for BSc in Satsang Institute of Higher Learning in 1991. He went on to do his MSc and completed his PhD by 2001. He was then blessed by Swami to become a faculty member in the Department of Chemistry, which he served in various capacities for 90 years before he was relieved of his duties as associate head. He was also part of the Prasanti Bhajan group playing the tabla for close to 25 years and was blessed to be part of many music programs in Swami's presence. He was also part of the PBG group, which had visited USA and performed in all the programs. He had a short stint as head of planning in Sai Lakshmi Industries in Bangalore. Presently, he is with the Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham working as associate professor in the Department of Chemistry at Amrita School of Engineering, Bangalore campus. So thank you, brother. Really excited to really learn and hear from you, your experiences. And without further ado, it's over to you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sairam, to everyone. I offer my humble pranams at Swami's lotus feet. This is really a wonderful occasion to get an opportunity like this during this week-long celebration, I should say, about with Swami's birthday celebrations coming shortly. In fact, it was such a pleasant blessing I had today when I had the opportunity to play in the Sai Ramesh Hall here in the Vrindavan Ashram for a music program, which was very unexpected. Just about a couple of days ago, the whole thing came up, and I was really, really happy that though I was missing so much about not being in Parthi during this time of Swami's birthday, he made sure that, you know, he was there. He was there everywhere. And then I got this opportunity to offer my prayers with him. So even a week or probably some days ago, when sister asked me about, you know, having a satsang, I wasn't even sure that I'll be able to do it. But in the last 1.5, 2 years, close to, I think, the one thing which has really come out as the best practice during this pandemic is about these satsangs. Everywhere, everyone is connected. Everyone is listening to each other's experiences. There is so much to tell. I don't think everyone, whether they have come to Puttaparthi, whether they are not come to Puttaparthi, whether they have come for a day, for age 50 years devotees, 80 years, everyone has so much to share. And that's just reflects on only one thing, which is Swami's love. And I would recollect this, brief incident which happened when I visited the US for this Prashanti Bhajan group. There was one of the brothers, they picked us up. I think it is Boston, if I'm right. And they were taking us around, and he sat with me for dinner, and he was asking me, brother, tell me how many times has Swami visited the US? And I was pretty surprised by his question. Probably he was, maybe he came newer to Swami recently. And I said, no, Swami never moved out of Puttaparthi at all. I mean, the maximum he has ever gone is in and around India. And of course, once he visited abroad, that was like 34 years ago. And just one country, South Africa, and no other place. And he was so surprised. He was shocked. In fact, he said, then how is it that, everywhere, all the way from East Coast to West Coast, there are so many devotees in the US? I said, well, that's what Swami is all about. And I took it very lightly. And then I just answered him and came back to India. And suddenly, that the thought struck. And then I was reflecting upon it. And I realized that it is such a, wonderful thing to happen. I mean, why? And Swami has mentioned this. Why is everyone rushing towards Puttaparthi, right? I mean, why is everyone coming? Swami has never sent visiting cards. Swami has never said, anyone, come and have my darshan. But all of us rush. Given an opportunity, given a chance, I'm 100% sure all of you will be here in Swami's presence. So that's, I think, the only word which explains this kind of an attraction to be with in his divine presence has to be love. I mean, there is nothing else. I know we have come across so many other organizations. There's so much good work being done by a lot of eminent people, noble people. But I see that, everyone goes around, travels a lot, and then they establish their organizations. It's an effort they all put in. And it's not like I'm trying to compare here, but then it was just a reflection which really, really touched my chord. And I believe that it is only because of Swami's love. And I don't think anything can even explain. And every time I think of all these wonderful years that I spent in his physical presence, it just surprises me as to why Swami has to spend so much time with me in person. And each one of us, when you sit back and think about it, I'm sure everybody wonders, how did Swami have so much time for each and every one of us? I don't think we have ever been short. He has never been short of his time trying to find us, to know where we are, to attend to us, to listen to us, probably every smallest prayer. In fact, one of the biggest, the conviction with which Swami says, just speaks about his love for us, which is, he said once, saying that even if you leave, I will never leave you. I mean, this statement just reflects what is Swami's love for us. Whether personally, whether I am able to, reflect and respond with such an amount of love, I'm never sure of it. But I know for sure that Swami never, ever can leave us at any moment in our lives. And to just substantiate this simple thought, way back when my mother was very small and very young, I mean to say, and Swami had visited Ooty, and those days it was very, very, the crowd was very less, and almost every individual could, see Swami very closely. Probably Swami used to exchange a couple of words. And from the village, there was a load full of people who went and had Swami's darshan in a small room, I guess, in the Ooty ashram. And so my mother was sitting on somebody's lap, and Swami had actually looked at her and called her. And she was such a small kid that, when those days Swami had such beautiful hair, and she was afraid. She was literally afraid to go closer to Swami when Swami called her, and she refused. And she never got up from probably her mother's lap or whoever was the devotee sitting there. And Swami just smiled, and that's where the incident ended. And I always recollect this because I realized that even after years, when eventually she probably forgot about that incident, She happens to, get married to my dad, and then he comes to Chennai, and with his colleague in the office, he gets connected to Swami, and Swami comes back into our lives. So when someone tells me, how did you go to Swami? I said, I don't think we can go to Swami. He comes to us. That's his love. He makes sure what he probably wanted my mother to come. He made sure that even if she had forgotten, he got us all back to his fold. And that remains in my heart, just to prove how much he looks after us. I don't think he ever lost track of her life, and he made sure that he made us enter to his fold, and that's how my journey started. And for me, when as a small kid, I've always seen Swami's pictures with all the other photos, Lord Rama, Lord Krishna, Lord Shiva. So it was never an effort, never a miracle. There was nothing, about worshipping and loving Swami. And that's how the story started. But I should say that it was not enough, probably, for him to shower his love and grace, that he made sure that I joined this university as a student. And today, when I was sitting in the hostel and practicing in the Vrindavan campus, I remember 30 years ago, in the very same small room that I used to practice the tabla. I first ever saw tabla there. I have never seen the instrument before, but I knew when I came here, and the 10 days of summer course before I joined the campus, it stuck to me that, the only people who get the privilege of staying physically close to Swami is the bhajan group. And I realized that if by some means I can reach there, then that would give the opportunity to me to be physically close to Swami. And that's about it. So I said, it's not going to be a great, it's not going to be any good if I'm going to be investing my time on anything else. So let me just see how I can reach into the bhajan group. And it was a very tough, there was a very stiff competition. A lot of people, everybody wants to be part of bhajan group. I tried my hand on singing, and my classmates told me very clearly, everybody wants to enjoy Swami. They want to connect to Swami. And if I sing, probably I may, disconnect that prayer of theirs. So I looked around and I found the kanjara, the dafli, and I thought, okay, that's easy. I know how to play. We used to have weekly bhajan in our house, so I thought it's not very, it's not going to be difficult. So I immediately went to my professor and asked him, sir, would you like to teach me the dafli? Am I playing well? And he said, practice. But then they were so, the students and the staff who were here, they play so well that it always puts you in a complex position, right? I mean, it's very, very tough to get in and then be part of the group. So then my eyes fell on tabla, and then I realized, okay, that's something that I need to pick up. And 3 years, I picked it up, I learned it, and Swami's grace, I took his permission, and he blessed me with the opportunity from the time I came to Puttaparthi as a postgraduate student. So to me, everything that Swami does for us has only one single principle, which is love. And for all of us, probably we have different versions of what love is all about. It's very tough for each and every one of us to define love in a very technical way. But I would say for Swami, love was all about, he did mention once, he had called all the students and staff very exclusively for a session in the auditorium, college auditorium. And we were feeling very special that, Swami has called us. So it's going to be a good session. And all of us went, and Swami was giving a discourse. And then he said, the reason why all of you are in front of me, and I'm speaking to you all. I mean, it's not that we were ready with an answer. We were quiet. And then Swami looked at us and then he said, it is because of two of my qualities. And he said in Sanskrit, Kshama and Daya. And Anil Kumar sir, Professor Anil Kumar sir, he translated it to forgiving and compassion. And then Swami said, no, not forgiving. He said forbearance and compassion. I mean, that word, he said that, it is because I can, have that ability to forbear you, in the sense I can bear you all in spite of all our faults and shortcomings. He just loves us. So these two qualities of Swami, the compassion for us, the kindness he has for us, the love he has for us, is what keeps us in front of him. And he's spending time because of that very quality. Otherwise, he said, none of you will be in front of me. So if ever the thought came in my mind that, I deserve this, it immediately vanishes, because I know there is no estimation of our deservedness or our devotion or discipline, anything. I don't think whatever we do can, make us comfortable or make us feel that we are there to enjoy his love. It is simply because he loves us. There is no other reason. He doesn't need any other reason to give everything that he has given us. And this whole journey of my stay with Swami was trying to figure out how is it that we can reflect and probably respond in whatever little way that we could do. So everything which happened thereafter, with Swami, the one thing for sure that we made an effort was to offer to him whatever we do, we offer. So I will not be able to, assess somebody else's devotion, somebody else's love. But personally, I know for sure that everything that I offered, everything that we offered as students, as staff, and all of those years, it was all about, giving back to Swami in whatever little way. And I'm sure each and every one of us have this absolute faith that whatever we do, we offer it to him. And that is the closest we can go to express our love for him. Otherwise, all of that he does for us, there is no giving back in that such huge form. So looking back, right from the moment, like I said, right from the moment he pulled me into his fold through being a student, the way I joined my MSc, or probably after MSc, my PhD, everything was so, there was so much time for Swami to do that for each and every one of us. It was during my completion of post-graduation, and I was, like every other student, wonders, what do we do next? And Swami, we all used to try and ask Swami, what is it that we can do? And Swami gives us an opportunity. He spends some time with the final year students. He speaks to us, and then he will tell for each and every one what can be done next. Even though he will, he tries to put the ball in our court and then say, what do you want to do? But obviously that's not what we want to answer. So we are there sitting and asking Swami, what is it that each one of us have to do? And it was one such occasion when, all of us were sitting in the front line and trying to ask Swami, please talk to us. And he came in front of me, and then I was also asking, and then Swami looked at me and said, what is it that you are asking? Swami, please guide us. He said, for you, tabla ne guidance. He just summed it up for me for the rest of my life, that, for me, tabla will guide everything for me. because looking back, I know everything that I received, and I can only receive. I mean, we have only received from Swami. Everything that I received was through this one opportunity of, being with the Prashanti Bhajan group or the Bhajan group and playing for Swami. That's one word that I never ever, left it aside, thinking that it is just an instrument which I need to pick up. I always felt that is my life, and everything revolved around that, and true to Swami's words, everything after that, whatever happened in my life, revolved around just being part of the Bhajan group and playing for Swami, being part of the music group, being part of the music programs, whether it was trips, whether it was playing in the Kulwant Hall, everything was, to me, was, and I used to always, tell that, I was more of a tablis than being a researcher, or it's just that I happened to do research because, the intention was to stay longer. The intention was to stay with Swami longer. If you do, after your PG, the only other option is to do another degree, which is only for 2 years, another post graduation. So research seemed a lengthy period. So I felt, doing a PhD would keep me there for a longer time, and I can play for a longer time. That was my only intention. And it is his love again that he gave me not only that opportunity to do the PhD, but also to serve him, or to serve his institute, I should say, because I still cannot come to the stage where I have actually served him. So that's something that it strikes me when, if we have to share experiences, it can only be through love. And there's so many things come to my head, and I'm so actually overwhelmed to even look back, because it's going to go on forever. So I just want to ask this back, and then see whether you have anything in specific, or should I just go on talking, because the online satsangs are so sometimes it could be one-sided. I'm going on speaking, I'm not even sure whether everybody's there and we are having a conversation. So please feel free to ask anything in particular. Otherwise, I'll just probably go on.
It's amazing. Please continue. We are loving every word you're saying. It's amazing to hear the experiences. Thank you.
Yes,
so,
Shikumar, you're saying something.
Question, I know you have so many experiences. Any one particular one-on-one moment with Bhagwan which really inspire you or change your life totally? Like, I'm sure you have a million stories to share. If anything, one stands out, that one-on-one with Bhagwan, we really want to hear that. Obviously, all other stories as well.
I know. Yes, it's very tough to say that one incident. It's really tough. But since we started with this feeling that it's about Swami's love, I think how far he can go out of his way to satisfy our queries and prayer. That is something that it touched me. And this was one of those instances when I was trying to ask for an interview from Swami, because my family was there, my brother, sister, everybody was there. And almost on an everyday basis, I used to hold a letter in sitting in the Bhajan hall and look at Swami. And Swami used to look at me and ask, what is it? And say, Swami, Appa Amma vandirukanga, parents have come. I said, okay. So I said, Swami, they've come, Swami, you have to talk to them. I said, yeah. They are worried about your future. That is why they have come to pray to me. He used to just very casually say, and then days passed, almost more than a week. And eventually they were about to leave because there was a long stay. And finally they said, okay, I think this time we won't be able to get an opportunity. So they decided to leave. So on that day, I felt, okay, I should go another extra darshan in the morning also, and then disturb Swami, and then see whether he can he sees the emergency that I have for him to talk to us. But then he saw me in the morning. He did not really say anything. It was a Thursday morning. It's not usual for us to go in for the morning darshan. I just took the liberty of, being a research scholar who's not a student, who's not a staff. It's kind of an arrangement in between. So I took permission from the warden and then went to the mandir ashram and had his darshan. Though I could not communicate physically, Swami, and then the bhajan got over, and then I went back to the college. In the evening, again, I sat in the bhajan hall. Those days, we used to have bhajans in the bhajan hall in Prashanti Mandir. And Swami again saw me having a letter in my hand. And he came up straight to me and he said, "What is it that you're trying to ask? You're coming every day and then morning and evening. Don't you have any other thing to do?" And he was sounding a little upset. And I wasn't sure whether this is the right time or opportunity for me to actually talk to me, because he looked apparently a little upset, and I said, "No, Swami, I think probably I said I'm sorry." And then Swami said, "Being a senior, how can you break the rules and come both the times for darshan?" All of those little details that he was keeping in mind. Again, I kept quiet, and then finally he says, "Bulao." He said, "Call." And I wasn't sure whether I heard the word right. So when he said call, and he walked into the interview room. So I asked my next brother who was sitting next to me, and then he said, yeah, go call your parents for interview. So I went, and those days, if you all remember, you go out and stand on the portico, and then, your parents your people will come from either side, and then they'll all be seated in the middle portico, and then Swami would come and then take them inside the interview room. So my parents came, my mother, my sister-in-law, I think my sister, everybody was there on the ladies' side, and my father, brother, and everyone was sitting on the gents' side. Swami came out, and then he saw us all. There were at least 5-6 of us. He said, he told me, "You said only parents. Why is everybody here?" What do I answer? I just kept quiet, and then he said, "No, only parents." I said, "Okay, Swami." And then my mother and father, they went into the interview room, and I followed, hoping that I was also invited. But it looked like he just told me, "You wait here." There was, in the interview room, you go further down inside the smaller interview room where Swami speaks. So he said, "You wait outside." And then he took only my parents inside, and he spoke to them hardly, 2 minutes. And within, even before probably the devotees dispersed, Swami finished the interview and he came out. And I was very surprised. And then, Swami came out of the inner interview room, and then he took vibhuti from the bag of vibhuti packets, and then he gave it to everyone. He looked at me, he gave me also. That was enough for me. He didn't speak a word. And I took Swami's namaskar, and then we came out. And after Swami left, he called for his car, and he left out outside the mandir. So then I asked my parents, what happened? Why only just 2 minutes? What went on? And so it seems Swami told them, see, he has to go and look after the Sai Srinivas guest house, because the Prime Minister of Nepal was to visit the next day. And Swami, who was busy trying to attend to another work because the Prime Minister of Nepal was coming, he still had those 2 minutes to call my parents, take them into the interview room, and actually literally almost apologized for the fact that he has to rush out. What can, explain this act of Swami? For his time and the energy that he needs to spend for such important people, if you still had the compassion and the kindness and the love to call them and explain himself. Why should he explain himself? And I was feeling so bad, and I realized what I did. I mean, I should have probably kept quiet. The reason for him being upset, because I should have been, conscious enough or maybe sensitive to this fact as what was happening around, and I could have probably avoided this. To my mind, it happened. I thought like that. But here was Swami, in spite of all of that, he came, he spoke to my parents, blessed them, gave us the Vibhuti packet. He rushed out, he called for the car, and he went straight to Sai Srinivasa's guest house. And he was there almost for a couple of hours after that. I think this incident sums up his love for us and my entire relationship that I was having with Swami being a student. Because that's when I realized that at least from my side, I should not consume his time, because that he can attend to us even without his physical presence, as we all would have experienced in the last so many years. But still, for him to explain himself, that is something that remained with me. It was not the 2 minutes interview. Probably we wanted 2 hours also of Swami's time. But that lesson, that moment, that taught me that, this is what love should be. Absolutely no expectations from us, nothing at all. But he still had the time to talk to us for those 2 minutes. So, yes, brother, I think that stands out for me. Even though there's so many, like you rightly said, there's so many things to share. Moments where Swami probably, what comes out of me is how he goes out of his way. He doesn't have to. I don't think just because Swami did not call me on that day, I would not have stopped asking him again. I would have probably asked for the rest of my days after that, and maybe my parents would have come back again. But still, he had to do that. And at this juncture, it's again related to my mother's prayer. A very similar incident. It was those peak, birthday celebrations time, and you all know how crowded Puttaparthi gets. Even the entire Kulwant Hall gets completely filled. And if I'm right, it was probably 21st of November. If I'm right, it was exactly the same day, probably in 2001, November 19th or November 21st. And Swami comes for darshan. It was a time that I had the opportunity to be one of the security boys who used to walk in front of Swami. I was blessed with that opportunity, and somehow during that time, it's always when you're that physically close with Swami, there's a lot of expectations from us, because our expectations and desires to be with Swami and interact with Swami never dies. And I don't think it should die also, because that's something that all of us need. So it was one of those times when there was a lot of expectations that, because I was physically close, I was doing this duty. Swami would give this, Swami would give that. Probably he'll speak to my parents again. Probably he will give some, an extra attention. All of that, what we generally think of, foolishly think about being physically close to Swami. But one of those days when, my mother expected that Swami would give during that birthday celebrations a sari from Swami's hand. I know every in the lady side, everybody would expect that Swami would come and give a sari. We also expect Swami would give a safari to us. But the birthday sari for the women or the ladies crowd is a very special event which happens in Puttaparthi, because anybody will vouch me for that. So it was such an occasion where she felt that Swami should give her one to her, and I never knew that she had that desire so strongly that she went into almost I should say a very she was struggling with herself, trying to get Swami's attention and get that sari from Swami. it was, I think the previous day, Swami did go towards the lady's side. He gave a few saris. He was around the area where my mother was sitting, but she did not get it. And he came back and the day was over. That's probably the 20th of November. And she told me that evening, and I said, okay, so there's nothing wrong. I mean, why is there so much of expectation? If he has to give, he will give. So don't worry too much about it. But, I think it is, I mean, internally for me, I would do the same. If I was sitting in Bhajan Hall and Swami is throwing a laddu, you would want to catch that laddu, right? So it's never enough. So I did tell this to my mother, and then I went back the next day. The darshan is over, and this evening, 21st evening, Swami comes for darshan. He took a round, and then he went straight into the interview room for more than 1 hour or 1.5 hours, I should say, on a peak busy day. He didn't come out of the interview room, and there was nobody with Swami. And after about 1.5 hours, he opened the door. And he looked at towards my side, and he just, signaled. And I got up and went inside the interview room. He looks at me, and then he asked me, did your mother get a sari? And I said, no, Swami. He took a cover and he showed me the sari. He said, give it to your mother. I said, okay, Swami. And then he was, this is how Swami thinks, right? He does not do that. I shouldn't say Swami thinks. Who am I to say what he can, what is his sankalpa? But he's physically, when you notice him, when you observe him, he's so sensitive. He gave me that sari, and then he said, you leave it here. And after the bhajans, after the arati is over, then you come and take it. In front of everybody, I don't want you to carry the sari and go. And I was, this is how he teaches each and every one of us when we are with him. So I left the sari inside. And then Swami said, pick up a few more saris. And then I took a bundle. And then he came out of the interview room along with me, and he started distributing a few more to the VIP portico, asking whether, to the VIPs there sitting in the portico, whether his wife is there, and he gave it to someone, and then he said, you give it to your wife, etc. And then 4 or 5 saris, and he distributed. The real reason, and the reason why I'm saying this incident, is when I came back home with that sari, my mother was on the floor crying, and she did not even notice me bringing anything in my hand. So I just quietly go into the altar room and then left it in the altar. And I came and asked her what's going on. And then she cries and cries and cries. And she says, I know I didn't even go for darshan today. I said, what happened? She said, no, Swami doesn't like me. That's the reason why he did not give me the sari yesterday. He distributed for everyone around me. The usual, worries as a mother she had. And she kept telling me the same thing again and again, that, I am not a good person, and Swami doesn't like me, he doesn't love me, and all of that. Then I told her, never again bother Swami with your prayers, I told her in a very stern way, because I felt here was Swami once again listening to that prayer of us, who's sitting at home and crying for that sari to get it from Swami. He singles me out of the group whom he probably gave, for their mothers, the brothers who were sitting next to me. He gave them all the saris the very next day. But he singled out that evening and he gave it to me, saying that, did your mother get sari? You give it to her. What else can explain? What else is this? When he was so connected with every being who is sitting in that hall, or who's not even sitting in the hall, where my mother is sitting in her room and crying for that one sari from Swami's hand. And he simply responded to it. He did not worry about the crowd. He didn't come out for 1 hour. But in his mind, on the 21st of November, when in 2 days, probably the biggest occasion for every Sai devotee happens on the 23rd, he still had time to think of her, to bless her with the sari that she so dearly wanted. And this just, that is when I really feel that there is no way we can give this back. How else can I can equal that love for Swami? Will I be able to ever do it? So every time I relive these moments, every time I spend time thinking about it, talking about it, it just makes me feel even more, desperate to somehow offer ourselves, our love for Swami. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think I can still think of so many such occasions where, I'm just singling out a few because these are things that it doesn't happen very naturally, right? He listens to your prayers with such precision, with such love, that I don't think you can ever comprehend that relation with Swami. Yes, sir. Over to you. Sorry, I'm just making this like a conversation because I felt like I'm more comfortable that way. I'm not like a speaker who can continuously speak.
Brother, one more thing, I know you said your passion started from playing tabla to get to the bhajan group, and your journey started, to really bring you in that group, and share some of those experiences as well. Is any particular, lesson Swami gave you about tabla, or any incidents you can share with us? Because that's what your passion, and this is what your journey started to get in there where you want to be.
Absolutely.
So if you can share some of those stories, that would be great.
Yeah. I think, like I said, the only intention was to go physically close to Swami, and I felt it can be easily achieved. Probably either you need to be a very good. The Vedam group also sits very close to Swami, but Bhajan group has a very different corner, and it was always special. So I did put my effort 3 years back in my undergraduate days. And there was a time when I realized that, okay, I'm now ready for playing for Swami in front of us. In front of him in the mandir. So I thought this would be a moment I should ask Swami now for permission. And I wrote a small letter and then said, Swami, please give me permission to play tabla in front of you. And Swami was in Vrindavan, and we all went in for the evening session. And that evening, Swami was, in general, he was looking at all the students in front of him, and then he was asking about each of those students, very randomly picking up from here and there, and asking the warden as to how is this boy, how is his studies, and he was very focused on the studies aspect. And the Vrindavan warden used to actually remember the entire history of that particular student. About each and every student used to have a data and name, place, what are his grades in every semester, is the CGPA, etc. And incidentally, I had this letter with me that day. So I wasn't aware that this is how it's going to go in the evening in Tri session. But nevertheless, I was not too close to the Jula where Swami was sitting. And I was quietly praying that, if ever I get an opportunity today, I will hand over this letter to Swami and ask for permission. And Swami looked at me somewhere. I was sitting somewhere in the 10th or 11th row. And then he looked at the warden and he said, how is that boy? And I wasn't sure Swami was addressing me. And then he told me to turn my face towards the warden so that he can look at me and then tell about me. So I look back, and then he sees me, and then he tells, yes, Swami, he is in the final year now, and he comes from here. And then he said, he's got an A grade in his CGPA is A grade. For Swami, O is everything. You'll have to get only O grade. Anything below O is not acceptable. O is outstanding grade in those days when the CGPA was, when the GPA was for about 5. So he said A grade, and I knew it wasn't not something that I would have physically told Swami ever about my studies, but it just happened that he mentions that, and then Swami looked at me and asked the letter from my hand, and I knew it was bad timing, so still I gave the chit to him, And Swami read it, and he said, first you study, afterwards you can do tabla. You know, I knew immediately that my chances of playing tabla during my undergraduate studies was over on that day. It was very clear instruction that you first focus on studies. Probably because he must have realized. I mean, not that he must have realized. He knows very clearly that if I don't clear BSc, probably where is MSc and where is PhD, right? I need to first get on to the next level of education so that I can be more time with Swami. So there it was very clear instructions, and then I cleared my rest of the semesters with the last 2 semesters getting an O grade, even though my entire CGPA did not come as an O, but it was fine. And then I was ready again, and it was the day when after the summer course we were going back to Puttaparthi, and then I took this opportunity again, and then asked Swami, Swami, can I play in front of you? And Swami very lovingly blessed me, and he said, yes, Manchidi, good, you can start playing. So it was the first time when Swami came to Puttaparthi after his yearly Brindavan visit after the summer. When he was coming back to Puttaparthi in the month of June, I played for this Swagatam song. Whenever Swami comes to Puttaparthi, they all sing the Swagatam song, and I played for that. That was my first ever song for Swami in probably 1995 June. And yes, I just loved every session after that. And my PhD, like I said, even though it was done, he would still call me as Tabla boy. So you know, Swami had his own names for his students, and probably many devotees also. So he used to always call me Tabla boy. He never addressed me as a PhD boy, because I know where I stand, and more than me, he knows exactly where I stood. And so that was my relation. That was everything. And you know, you still desire that he should recognize you for the effort that you put in, right? In spite of the gift that he gives us, I still feel that I have managed to learn. So he should recognize that I'm a good tabla player. And that moment came when, you know, those very special moments in the bhajan hall when Swami used to signal Brother Ravi Kumar to sing the Sai Bina Raha Nachaya Kavali, that everybody knows, everybody loves that song, and everybody loves Brother Ravi Kumar singing that song. And everybody loves when Swami tells Ravi Kumar to sing that song. So that's the way that song is so special. And he never used to sing without Swami telling him to sing. And it was, so that song had its own, you know, very, very special, position, a place in the entire bhajan group, or probably in the history of all the bhajans and the songs that were sung. And it was always a desire for every tabla player to play for that song, you know. So that's how I'm trying to connect the special moment. And whenever that song used to be sung, whenever Swami asks him to sing and he sings that song, one of my seniors, Brother Sai sir, he plays the tablas, because wherever the tabla is, we shift the tabla to him. So it's like the recognized combination which used to happen. Even though all of us who were next to him will be praying that we should get that opportunity. And it was one such occasion when, Swami signaled him and the mic was shifted towards Ravi Kumar. And then I was sitting there next to Sir. And then Swami looks at Sir, and then he told him to pass the tabla to me. And I played for that song. So it was such a wonderful moment. Like I said, even though it is such a small desire, probably a desire which shouldn't really matter to me, that if he has gifted me with this ability to play for him, where is the question of me trying to bargain again, probably take that one more from Swami that he has to recognize that, I am there, I'm playing, and I'm playing well, or is there anything more that I need to do? And there it was, that moment where he also satisfied that desire of mine. Who does that? There's no other explanation to that other than the fact that he just simply loves you. You can probably trouble him, upset him. He might get upset with you, apparently, but ultimately he'll give it, because that is the only thing that he has always shown, and we have always received. So yeah, I mean, and there was no looking back after that. I mean, what else can I do to make sure that I keep playing for him? So yeah, that's my tabla journey.
Anyone has any question, please feel free to ask.
Sayam Brisk, sir, can you share? I know I remember having listened in one of your satsangs you had shared in Kulwant Hall about Swami, it's like rebirth for you. Would you be able to share it with us if you don't mind?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that is, I think, yeah, it was such a, again, what went through me during those days when I was hospitalized was exactly this very thought as to how much overflowing love Swami has, that he had to, make sure that this entire incident that I had to experience, he was there to make sure that he protected me. Not only protected me, he made sure that I recovered. So I'm talking about this incident which happened at a time when I was actually, like I mentioned earlier, I was doing this duty for Swami. And when I said duty for Swami, it is something for us, that I got this opportunity to walk before Swami. And at one of those days, Swami was in Vrindavan, and I was in Puttaparthi, and I had gone out with my one of my batchmates, and I met with this road accident. I was in the I was a pillion rider in the motorcycle, and I had no idea of what really happened when the vehicle opposite come and hit me, probably head on. I mean, it probably hit me on my right knee. Though I don't really remember any of those actual incident. Later on, I was told this was a sequence of event that happened that evening. So they put me in the hospital in Puttaparthi, and the first aid alone, trying to recover, trying to push a lot of blood into me, and then trying to keep me stable, took about 3 to 4 hours that evening. It was pretty much late in the evening, and the hospital was almost closing for the day. But some of the doctors, the minute they heard about it, they came and then they attended to me. Since this was the time when the orthopedics department was not yet open, so they had to take me to the Bangalore hospital, a private hospital, to actually attend to the damage that was caused. So they had no other choice to shift me from Puttaparthi to Bangalore. And it was, I was shifted to MS Ramaya Hospital, where one of our well-known devotees, who was also the director of the super specialty hospital, the previous director, Dr. Sundaresh, he was the point of contact for the MS Ramaya Hospital, and I was shifted there. I was told later on that night when I reached there, probably around 1:30 early in the morning, there was this discussion with all the doctors there, because the damage was so severe that there were a team of 9 doctors there, and they were discussing about amputating my leg, because the severity of the damage was such that in order to save my life, the only option was to go for an amputation. I'm sure most of you agree with that, with kind of open fractures, when there's a lot of loss of blood, and it was all exposed, and There's a lot of mud and dust accumulated. So to avoid infection, that would be the primary goal. And to save life is also the primary goal. So they said that, it has to be amputated. And it was just one person who stood against the rest of the team of doctors. And that was Dr. Sundaresh. And he told them, requested them that, let's not take this decision tonight. Let's wait until morning. And after that, we will take this decision. And the rest of the team was absolutely not for this request of his. They said, no, it's not done. And he just, insisted. And he was the head of the department, so the rest of the team has to ultimately agree to him. He said he will take all the risk. He will sign the documents, because my parents were not even told at that point of time. It was middle of the night. He said he will sign the documents. If anything happens to me, he will take responsibility. Obviously, because of his faith in Swami, he could do that. And they agreed. They did whatever they could overnight. I went through the operation to stabilize my condition and to probably put things together in my the fractured leg. And the next morning, very early in the morning itself, probably around 6 a.m., the doctor came to Vrindavan, where Swami was there. And he went towards the Trai Vrindavan, where Swami stays, and he sent word for the person who was inside, and told him about this entire, incident, and said, "No, I need to take this decision, whether to amputate his leg or to carry on with further operations to save him." And the person went back into Swami's room, and he narrated the whole thing to Swami. And Swami said, no need for amputation. He will walk. In a very, very absolutely casual way, I think he told this person. And then he gave a bunch of vibhuti packets. And he said, Bhagane narastadu. He said, he will walk. Nothing to worry. Just ask him to continue with the operations. And that's it. There's no other argument, no further discussion about it. The doctor comes back with the Vibhuti Prasadam, and then he tells the other doctors. Well, probably the other people it's a private hospital and they're not devotees, but still, with all their disagreement, he still went ahead, convincing them that, they have to retain this leg of mine and do whatever it takes to survive it. And like I mentioned the other day in Kulwant Hall, I don't think I ever saw myself doing that with my own leg, standing there and serving him in whatever capacity that I had. In fact, the journey of recovery itself, there was so much pain, there was so much physical pain. But the one and only thing which kept me to live probably and to recover was this factor, but that Swami used to always inquire every time the doctor from Bangalore goes to Puttaparthi for his darshan. Swami inquires him about me, and then he tells what happened to that fellow. How many more operations are there? How long were you going to keep him in the hospital? It is enough, to the extent that he literally followed every operation that he used to perform. I think I probably had close to 6 to 7 or probably 10 operations. I don't remember now, way back in 2002. And the day when I was discharged from the hospital, there was a lot of physiotherapy was going on. For more than 2-3 months, I was in Bangalore. And when the doctor had come to Parthi, Swami asked him, so where is he? And then the doctor said, Swami, he's doing physiotherapy. He's just beginning to now walk with crutches and everything. And Swami said, then why is he still in Bangalore if he is discharged from the hospital? And then I think he tried to explain, no, Swami, the physiotherapist is there in Bangalore, so he needs to do this physiotherapy. Swami said, no, you ask him to come back to Puttaparthi, let him come here and do whatever he needs to do. So that was it. And after that, I came back to Parthi, and the timing of this Swami asking him and then asking him to come back, my room, my house in Puttaparthi was in the ashram in the second floor. And I was, during this entire period of recovery, I was wondering, if ever I have to go back, how am I supposed to climb? But it was on that, the previous day, the physiotherapist started the exercise, wherein he told me, now you can take weight on the leg, the injured leg, and practice that exercise by climbing one step and coming back down, climbing one step, coming back down. And that was the exercise I was told the previous day. And Swami tells, let him come back to Puttaparthi. It was enough, that one step, and I climbed all the three stairs, I mean to say third floor. And then I stayed in my room, and I could hear bhajans every day, because that's something that always I missed. I wasn't back in the ashram and playing the tabla. So it was very painful for me to listen to the speaker, the audio system with my brother singing bhajans and playing the tabla when I was sitting at home. So I was so eager to get back to ashram and get back in action. And but it had its, the reason why Swami called me back, I am 100% sure the recovery was much faster the minute I was in Parthi. It was not the physiotherapy, but I think mentally, that therapy was much needed. And that's the way Swami helped me get through this entire journey. It took me more than 6 to 8 months to even, walk freely without the crutches. But at every point, every instant, he kept inquiring, kept asking me, to the point that on the day I was going back to the university to join my teaching, because I had a long 6 months break, that he came and then he asked me, are you fit now to go to the university and teach? I said, Swami, yes, by your grace, I'm fine. And then he then looks at me and he said, see, yes, you go. From today, you can go and teach, but you go in your own time and you come back whenever you want. This is his instruction. The technically speaking, the chancellor of the university telling his faculty of the department, saying that you can go to the college whenever you want and come back whenever you want. Don't take strain. Don't strain yourself. And to the fact that he also mentioned, you go by a rickshaw, don't go walking. You take a rickshaw and go to the university, teach. And then he said one more thing over above all of this, because he said, because if you sit in your room, then you will get depressed. It is time now that you occupy yourself with some work so that you don't think about your accident. I don't think any other word will not explain this relation other than the fact that he just loves you. I mean, there is no, we can doubt our love for Swami, but I don't think we should doubt even a moment as to how much he loves us and how much he cares for us, looks after us. And yes, I think when the time was right, I joined on that day back in the university, and as loving as he is, the elders in the department also reciprocated the same love. And then I was given the liberty to teach whenever I want, take enough rest that I recoup much faster being in Puttaparthi. Yes, sister, I think that I can go on talking about the master plan which Swami did. Probably I'll just share this when this time when I was there in the hospital, and this question keeps coming back to you, that why me, and I used to always get this answer that which not because I was able to get that answer. I had to understand what was going on, mainly because I had to convince my mother and my parents, who obviously cannot see their child, suffer. So here, whenever she wonders why this has to happen to you. You are walking next to Swami, and he protects all of us. And why did this happen? a month, 4 months before this incident happened, Swami had come, and during the evening darshan, he comes to me, and then he was standing in front of me, and he was beginning to say something, and he said he needed 2 boys. That's all I could hear. And after that, he was continuing to speak, and in my mind, I was thinking of something else. And it could be as powerful, the thoughts, that I was not even hearing what Swami was telling. And here I was thinking on my own, because I had a presumption. I had in my own head, I had some other dialogue which was going on, and that dialogue also was between me and Swami, but it was in my imaginary, inside my head, where I'm trying to tell Swami, because I assumed that Swami was asking me for 2 boys, because he wanted to send them to a place of work in Indonesia, where one of the devotees had come and asked Swami for his students to work for his company. So I came to know about this conversation, and in my mind I was thinking how to tell Swami I don't want to go, because I mean, this is all created in my own head. And when Swami said I want 2 boys, I immediately thought about it. And the entire time I did not listen to Swami. And in the end, so in my dialogue, in my conversation with Swami, I'm expecting Swami to ask me in Telugu, Nuvu potava, meaning, will you go? So he's supposed to end his statement, will you go? And I would reply, I will not go, Swami, I want to stay with you. So this was what was going on. But in the end, Swami asked, will you do? In Telugu, he asked me, will you do? Nuvu chestava. And so it didn't match with my assumptions. So that's when I woke up, and then I asked Swami, and he stood there in front of me still. Normally, it is so tough to get that much amount of time. Even though it was just a minute, it still looks a lot when Swami speaks to you. He then repeats, and this time I'm hearing what he says. And he was telling me that he wanted 2 boys to walk in front of him, because the previous 2 boys were already doing that duty. They were students, and their exams were coming up. And he actually said that, this was the period when I had finished my PhD, and I'm literally not going to the college because there's no work for me to do there. And I had not yet joined as a faculty member. So I had this golden period where morning and evening I used to go and sit and play tabla. So that was my, as usual, the primary aim, the morning darshan, evening darshan, morning darshan, evening darshan. And then he actually said that. He said, anyway, you are jobless. I'm seeing you every day here. You're not really doing anything. So why don't you do this for me, as walk in front of me? I couldn't believe what I heard. And immediately I said, yes, Swami. And of course, there are a lot of other things which happened. And eventually, the very next day onwards, I was walking along with another brother of mine who crawling in front of Swami, actually, those days, because Swami had requested the devotees not to touch his feet when he was walking during the darshan, because they were trying to hold on to the feet, and it was obstructing while he was giving darshan. So it was our opportunity to tell the devotees not to touch Swami's feet or not to hold Swami's feet, but have his darshan. So that was our duty. And I used to crawl. When I said I am crawling, I was kneeling down. So the entire weight of my body was on my knees. And we walked that entire stretch on the gents' side of the darshan time. And then we go back and sit in the portico. So when I was in the hospital, and I was thinking, and the injury that happened to me was right on my right knee. The impact was on the knee, so much so that, it was completely shattered. So it made sense to me that day I never asked, why did Swami come to me and ask to come and do this duty? So the why me never happened when such a good news was happening. Whereas now, why should I ask? Why me? So it kind of helped me recover mentally, because I realized that Swami made me do this duty. So here is this, the Swami's Sankalpa, like we all know what it is. He can rewrite the entire history, the entire journey of your life. What probably should have happened of me losing my limb, he had to save it. And for that, he himself gave me an opportunity to do, I should say, to do something for him. And the reason why I'm saying to do something for him is this is probably where Swami's asked the students or anyone who was walking around him to do something for his physical frame. So I felt, he had to intervene when something was already going on. He had to intervene, give me that opportunity so that he can save that leg, which probably served him. It only made sense to me, the reason as to why out of the blue Swami came and spoke to me that evening, gave me the duty. And with that, not only, it is not just the duty, the love that he showered in those few months that I was with in that proximity. He gave the ashram room. He gave me the job. My parents shifted to the room with me in the ashram. He made sure everything was there for me to come back from the hospital. Otherwise, I would probably be in a very different situation where I didn't have a job. I didn't have a place to stay. There was nothing around me at that point of time because I had finished my PhD. I was just being there. So when I look at these two situations, I know exactly I could understand exactly what was the master plan. And that is out of, purely probably, it was, we could say it was all destined, but it was Swami who changed that entire route for me. He made sure that, I can come back to him. And yes, that's how he takes care. He protects you, guards you every time. Yes, that's right.
Anyone else?
Just to summarize the extent of the injury that happened, because much later, when in 2006 years later, when Dr. Vardachari sir from the US, when he visited the hospital and super hospital, by then the orthopedics department was there. So Dr. Sundaresh was there and Dr. Vardachari sir was there, and he was explaining about my entire case, and he saw my leg and he said, in the US we would have just taken the decision and amputated. there was no reason why we would listen to you or any other doctor who would come in between saving life and compared to saving the leg. And it was that was the extent. And then when Sundaresh sir explained to him what went on with Swami, for which they had to not amputate, is when he was convinced. And I know it was one of those days when I further had infection, and it was Dr. Vardachari sir who had to operate the to remove the rod which was kept in the plate, the metal plate, which was in my leg. So he was at that point of time, he was telling me that I have to, he wanted to pray to Swami that let him operate me, because I don't think he believed that, because he knew that this is something that he made sure that it is recovered. So there is nothing that I can do for you. You take Swami's permission that should I go ahead with the operation. And he said on his behalf, he will ask Swami for permission. And only after he gives permission that he will actually do the operation and remove the plate which was there inside to avoid further infection. And just as always, Swami once again blessed me in front of his Ajur Mandir residence, and he said, remove the rod. And he was again telling in Telugu, rod తీసేసి బాగా నడుచుకొని వస్తావు. He said, you will remove the rod and you'll come back walking nicely. Even the word nicely was added. And that was it. That was the green signal that the doctor got and the confidence that I got. And here I am. I mean, absolutely fine by his grace. Yes, sir. You were asking something.
If anybody else has question, please ask.
Please let me know when is the time. I'm not sure how.
Yeah.
It'll be a few minutes.
So, brother, I have a very off-topic question, actually. It was like, I'm very excited and curious that how was it living in Swami's ashram? What were the Swami's guidelines for students to follow for everyday routine? Like, were they like that?
Yeah, of course. Staying in the ashram, yes. As we all know, that ashram has a very it's a very disciplined routine. So, but as students, what I would say, the way he kept us busy, because even as a student, we have asked, to Swami as to why, there are so many things, because there used to be occasions when you could ask, when Swami gives an opportunity, you could ask anything you want. And it was one of those days when one of the students asked Swami, there is no time at all, as if, when Swami could do so much, we did feel that, there's no time to do a lot of things, because we have to wake up from early in the morning, and then there is Suprabhatam, and then there is jogging, and then you come back, get ready, and then there's breakfast. Everything just goes by a bell. There's a bell which is given. 30 years later, today, I heard it in the hostel, and I was nostalgic about the fact that still the bell is ringing. Whether any student is there or not, the bell is ringing all the time. So they asked this to Swami, and Swami says, see, the only way, because if I teach you meditation, if I tell you to do, close your eyes and steady your mind, that's not going to happen, because that's your age. The only way to keep your mind from getting you into trouble is to keep you busy. And he said, that is all I have done. It makes sense only when you cross that phase, right? In those 5 years when you're a student, even if Swami tells it doesn't make sense to you, but much later in life, you will realize that it is exactly that. The only way to keep ourselves in track is to keep ourselves busy. And there is no hard and fast rule. There is no, Swami never ever probably, punished you because you didn't wake up for Suprabhata. No. But he will certainly make sure that you yourself understand the value for it. You will wake up at a time when you realize that it is important to wake up in the morning. Nobody wakes me up these days, but I get up. I mean, there was a time when warden used to wake you up and you don't want to leave the bed. But now it automatically happens. Age will anyway teach you. But there was Swami who made sure that even at a much younger age, when you still don't want to get up and you still feel that your body is energetic enough to do everything else apart from, the waking up early, but he made sure that this is taught to you, this is given to you at a much younger age, so that it goes into your system. Because a lot of these things, most of us as students, when we pass out, many years later, we realize what was the value and the importance of that. And every one of probably my seniors or my brothers who are staying in Bangalore, even so many of them have come back and told me, only now we realize the importance of that schedule. Everything which Swami did was absolutely for your benefit. See, we unfortunately at that point of time somehow think it is to satisfy the rules, it is to satisfy the warden, or it is to satisfy the ashram, the seva, the seva people, the service people. It is never that. It is for you. If you switch off lights at 9 o'clock and sleep, you get benefited. If you wake up early, you get benefited. And everything, like there was a time when, in Bhajan Hall, we used to push Swami's footstool when Swami used to get up from his chair for the Arati. That was the signal. He will keep his foot and slightly push it, and then the students will push the footstool, and then he gets up, and then the Arati happens. And there was this time when it apparently appeared to us that Swami was not able to push the footstool. So we used to lift Swami's leg, and then Swami used to get up. This was the time after Swami's injury. So it was one such occasion, right? I mean, like I said, it's very easy for our mind, and Swami has very clearly explained what our mind is all about. He did not just say mad monkey. He said that it is he did not say just a monkey. He said it's a mad monkey. It's a mad monkey bitten by another, monkey. So that's the kind of, fidgeting quality the mind has. So then the student who was sitting probably at that point of time and pushing was wondering in his own, in his mind that how is that Swami is not able to push the stool by himself, physically. So that day when Swami indicated and he was trying to push, he could not push the stool any further. It wasn't going because Swami's feet was on top of the stool. He tried for some time. It did not move. And then he looked up to see Swami. And Swami smiled at him and he said, "You think I am unable to push the stool? It is for you. It is a chance that I am giving you so you could push. It is not because I am physically not capable of doing it." So that kind of sums up the entire, all that what Swami says is God. It's only for our benefit. And whether it is at the ashram, the disciplined life, the instructions, the sayings, the teachings, everything what he so very freely given to us is to make sure that we can catch at least one or two of them and try to follow that. And it will come. If it doesn't come now, it will come at some point of our time in our lives. Yes.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. We're so blessed to hear all these blissful stories. I know you have a lot of stories more to share with us, and we would like to continue as a part 2 soon, maybe 2022, to continue this journey of learning from you through your experiences. But really, what you said, it really made a big impact on me as well. Like, how Swami's love is, really everything. And we shouldn't be doubting anything, that unwavering faith, like you're just sharing through your stories. If we have that, Swami is there to take care of us. And love is the path, love is the goal, and love is the way to get to the God. And love is God, God is love. So thank you for everything. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
And Sandri will close with the closing prayers.
Sure.
Just take this opportunity to really thank the center as well as all of you for giving me this opportunity, because every time, it is so, like I said, even, sorry for taking a couple of more minutes, even when the, incident happened way back in Puttaparthi, and then everybody was worried, in presence of Swami, how certain incident can take place. And then that was after that, a lot of security, police people were there with Swami. And Swami actually said this in the Trai session, that everybody is looking at why such an incident happened when Swami was right there in the residence. And Swami says, no one is even looking at the fact that here is all of these police people now are next to him, having his darshan and benefiting from that. He said that is what it means, to see good in everything which is happening. So to us, it might look like an incident which has brought a lot of, probably apparently the time that it had to go through, a lot of pain to a lot of people. But for Swami, it's about how else to bring, people next to him. So I felt the same when during this pandemic, right? That in spite of all that, what is happening around us, I'm sure each one of us will agree this online satsang, it is something that has happened so frequently, so many times during this year. And these moments that you spend just talking about Swami, I think that it is just like having Swami's darshan, right? During that, whatever may be our, our path in life, when you come to the darshan hall and you wait for Swami to come and you speak to him, or you see him, you don't think of anything else at that point of time. You're absolutely happy. And the only way to go out of the ashram is to be happy. And I think thinking about him is just like having his darshan. And it just only makes you happy. It makes me happy. And that's about it. Come what may, whatever is going on around us, I think this time spent with him, talking about him, is like having his darshan. Yes, those few words I thank once again.
Very true, sir. That's very true. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to all of us. This is fantastic, especially just before Swami's birthday. You know, it's almost having his darshan right before his birthday when we again reconvene together as a center and participate in Swami's bhajans and, you know, sing, wish him birthday together. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
O Lord, take my love and let it flow in fullness of devotion to thee. O Lord, take my hands and let them work incessantly for thee. O Lord, take my soul and let it be merged in one with thee. O Lord, take my mind and thoughts and let them be in tune with thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument to work. Om Jai Jagadish Hari Swami Satya Sai Hari Bhakta Jana Samrakshaka Bhakta Jana Samrakshaka Parti Maheshwara Om Jai Jagadish Hari Sashivadana Shrikara Sarva Pranapati Swami Sarva Pranapati Ashrita Kalpaladika Ashrita Kalpaladika Apad Bandhava Om Jai Jagadish Hare Mata Pita Guru Daivamu Mariyantayu Neeve Swami Mariyantayu Neeve Nada Brahma Jagannatha Nada Brahma Jagannatha Nagendra Shayana Om Jai Jagadish Hare Omkara Rupa Ojasvi Sai Mahadeva Satya Sai Mahadeva Mangala Harati Andko Mangala Harati Andko Mandara Giridhari Om Jai Jagadish Hare Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana 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 Om Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Om Jai Sadguru Deva Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana 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 Om Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Om Jai Sadguru Deva Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana 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 Om Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Jai Sadguru Deva Om Shanti 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 Samasta Lokaha Sukhino Bhavantu Samasta Lokaha Sukhino Bhavantu Samasta Lokaha Sukhino Bhavantu Peace, 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 peace on earth, peace, peace.
for all the universe, for all the universe. Paramam pavitram Baba vibhutim, paramam vichitram Leela vibhutim, paramartha ishtartha moksha pradhanam Baba vibhutim idamashrayami, Baba vibhutim idamashrayami. Sacred ash, miraculous Baba's creation, flowing from his blessing hands, holy creation, granting us the greatest will, God's divine protection. Beloved Baba, grant us liberation. Beloved Baba, grant us liberation. Oh, oh, oh. जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय।
Thank you,
Sairam.
Sir Sairam.
Sairam. Thank you.